You reread their message like it might reveal a secret. Your chest feels busy before anything has even happened. A small reply can change the whole weather of your day. And somehow, the people who confuse you can feel unforgettable. That is part of why we fall for the wrong people. Not because we are foolish. Not because we love too much. But because attraction is not always a vote for peace. Sometimes it is a vote for what feels familiar. Sometimes it is a chase dressed up as chemistry. Sometimes your heart calls something special when it is actually unresolved. And once you see that, so much starts making sense. The wrong person rarely looks wrong at the beginning. They often arrive as intensity, mystery, confidence, or emotional electricity that makes ordinary connection feel suddenly dull. What pulls you in first is not always who they are. Sometimes it is how strongly they activate something already living inside you. Here's what is really going on. Many of us do not fall for people in a clean, logical way. We fall through patterns. We fall through hopes. We fall through old emotional maps we did not realize we were still carrying. That is why the same kind of relationship can keep appearing with different faces. The details change. The emotional ending often does not. One of the most powerful reasons we choose the wrong people is familiarity. Not healthy familiarity. Emotional familiarity. The kind that feels strangely known, even when it hurts. If love once felt unpredictable, distant, hard-earned, or inconsistent, your system can confuse that feeling with desire. Not because you want pain, because your body learned to pay close attention to what was uncertain. And uncertainty can feel magnetic when it is old enough. This is the beautiful and difficult part. We are often drawn toward what feels like home before we ask whether home was peaceful. So when someone is warm one day and hard to read the next, it can feel compelling, not safe. Compelling. There is a difference, and it changes everything. You might call it chemistry because it is intense. But intensity and compatibility are not twins. They only wear similar clothes in the beginning. A healthy bond usually grows with steadiness. An unhealthy one often spikes with uncertainty, relief, longing, and emotional guessing. That cycle can create a powerful high. It can also make you mistake emotional whiplash for depth. Think about the person who gives just enough to keep you hopeful. Not enough honesty to let you relax. Not enough consistency to let you trust. But enough attention to keep your imagination working overtime. That kind of dynamic can be addictive because it keeps reward unpredictable. An unpredictable reward is incredibly sticky for the human mind. You keep leaning in, not because the connection is strong, but because closure never fully arrives. So your feelings stay active long after your peace has left the room. Here is the twist most people miss. Sometimes what feels like deep love is really deep activation. Your thoughts race. You analyze everything. You scan for signs. You wait for reassurance. And the relationship starts living in your mind more than in real life. That does not mean your feelings are fake. It means your feelings may be feeding on uncertainty instead of mutual care. That is a very different kind of bond. Another reason we fall for the wrong people is projection. We meet a real person, but we also meet our idea of who they could become. We notice the soft side beneath their distance, the pain behind their mixed signals, the potential behind their inconsistency. And then we start loving the version of them that only appears in flashes. This happens so quietly. You tell yourself they are guarded, not unavailable. You call emotional absence complexity. You call confusion timing. You call the ache connection. And little by little, you build a relationship with possibility instead of reality. If this sounds like you, you are not alone, and I would love to know which part feels most familiar. A lot of loving people do this because hope is generous. Hope sees what could be and tries to protect it. But hope without evidence can trap you in emotional debt. You keep investing because you already invested. You keep explaining because you already explained. You keep waiting because leaving would force you to admit the fantasy is not becoming a home. And that can be a heartbreak before the breakup even happens. There is also the pull of being chosen. Sometimes the wrong person becomes irresistible because winning them feels like proving something about your worth. If they are hard to reach, emotionally unavailable, admired by others, or slow to commit, desire can become tangled with validation. You stop asking whether they are good for you. You start asking what it would mean if they finally picked you. That shift is subtle. It turns love into a test. And tests keep you performing instead of connecting. So here's something to remember. The moment a relationship makes you audition for basic care, something important is already being revealed. Real affection does not require perfect performance to stay warm. It does not make you earn every crumb of clarity. It does not grow stronger the more invisible your needs become. The wrong people often awaken your longing more than your actual self. You become hyper-aware of how to keep the bond alive. You monitor tone. You shrink requests. You overinterpret silence. You call it being understanding, but underneath it, you may be abandoning yourself in slow motion. And this is where many people get confused. They think the strongest love is the one that costs the most emotionally, the one that keeps them up at night, the one they cannot shake, the one that almost works. But the hardest relationship to release is not always the truest one. Sometimes it is simply the one that touched your oldest wound. That is why it feels so personal. That is why it feels faded. That is why a single text can feel like rescue. If you have ever felt more attached after being disappointed than after being cherished, this part is for you. Your system may have learned to bond through relief, not through steady care. Relief feels powerful because it arrives after tension. They pull away. You ache. They return. You exhale. And your body remembers the exhale as love. But love is not supposed to depend on recurring fear to feel intense. That cycle can make ordinary healthy affection seem flat at first. Not because it lacks depth, because it lacks emergency. And if your heart is used to emergency, calm can feel unfamiliar before it feels good. This is one reason healthy people can be overlooked. They answer clearly. They follow through. They do not leave you guessing. And because there is no dramatic chase, your mind may not label it as magnetic right away. But there is a kind of attraction that grows after safety, not before it. A quieter kind. A more rooted kind. The kind that lets your personality come out instead of just your anxiety. That may not create fireworks on day one. It often creates warmth you can actually live inside. Here is another truth that can sting a little. Sometimes we choose the wrong people because they protect us from true intimacy. That sounds backwards, but stay with it. An unavailable person gives you longing without full vulnerability. You can obsess, fantasize, chase, and ache without ever fully being met. And being fully met can be terrifying if part of you expects rejection. A distant person lets you keep love slightly out of reach. That way, your hope stays alive, but your deepest fear never gets fully tested. This is the strange comfort of impossible love. It hurts, but it also hides you. Because as long as the relationship never truly lands, you never have to fully arrive either. You never have to be seen in the ordinary, daily, vulnerable ways that real closeness requires. No wonder the wrong person can feel so consuming. They are not just a person. They become a stage where your unmet needs, old stories, fear of rejection, and hope for repair all perform together. And when that happens, leaving feels bigger than leaving one relationship. It feels like giving up on a chance to rewrite the past. But here is the gentle insight. No romantic partner can safely heal what only self-awareness can name. A relationship can support growth. It cannot become the magical proof that your old wounds were worth it. That is too much weight for love to carry. The healthiest shift is not learning how to stop feeling attracted. Is learning how to pause before turning attraction into trust. That pause changes everything. It lets you ask better questions. How do I feel after spending time with them? Do I feel more grounded or more scrambled? Am I attached to who they are or to how badly I want this to work? Do their actions create safety or does my imagination keep filling the gaps? Am I being loved, or am I being stimulated? Those questions are powerful because they bring you back to reality. Reality is where healthy love lives. Not in potential, not in decoding, not in waiting for someone to become emotionally available after months of evidence that they are not. And this is the beautiful part. When you stop idealizing confusion, you make space for a different kind of relationship to finally register. You notice kindness sooner. You respect consistency more. You stop treating peace like boredom. You begin to understand that clarity is not less romantic. It is more generous. It lets love breathe. It lets you breathe too. You also start seeing your own patterns with less shame. That matters. Shame keeps people stuck. Shame says, I keep choosing wrong because something is wrong with me. Self-awareness says, I keep choosing what feels familiar, and now I can choose more consciously. That is a completely different story. And it is a far kinder one. If someone feels irresistible, that feeling alone does not mean they are your person. It may simply mean they fit an old emotional blueprint with alarming precision. That is useful information, not a life sentence. The goal is not to become cold. The goal is not to stop being romantic. The goal is to let your heart become wiser about what deserves access. You can still feel sparks. You can still want depth. You can still crave real love. But you do not have to confuse longing with alignment anymore. And once you stop doing that, your relationships start asking less from your survival self and more from your whole self. That is where love gets better. Not when it becomes perfect. When it becomes honest. When it becomes mutual. When you no longer have to betray your peace to feel chosen. So if you've fallen for the wrong people before, it does not mean you are broken. It may mean your heart has been trying to solve an old puzzle with new faces. And now you are finally learning the pattern. That is not failure. That is growth arriving in plain clothes. The right kind of love will not need you to decode your worth inside it. It will not make you perform calm while feeling chaos. It will not thrive on your confusion. It will meet you where honesty lives. It will make room for your tenderness without turning it into leverage. And when that kind of love appears, it may feel quieter at first. But it will also feel lighter, more breathable, more real. If this gave language to something you have been feeling, subscribe for more warm psychology about love, attachment, and relationships. And if you know someone who always mistakes intensity for connection, share this with them gently. Because sometimes the biggest shift in love begins when we stop asking why they felt so right and start asking why the pattern felt so familiar. That question can change your whole future in love.